The top cop who put his badge on the line for justice.
The gripping story of Deputy Sheriff Doug POPPA. He was a top cop who did the right thing and paid dearly for it.
You know the name Doug POPPA? Yes, I do. God bless Doug POPPA, an honest cop.
He was a man of integrity. His testimony last summer freed an innocent man from jail who had already been convicted of shooting his ex-wife. But Papa's going public cost him his job as an undercover cop.
I was elated, of course, but then as he testified, I was somewhat concerned for him because I knew that they were probably going to crucify that man.
Doug POPPA was targeted for a 10-day suspension by his own department for defying superiors and talking to the media. This Brooklyn-born street fighter wouldn't back down.
Sometimes the truth has a price. That may be the lesson of a Virginia police officer who says, in trying to do the right thing, he ended up paying for it.
The message you're sending is, see, we did it, Doug. You don't come out, you don't buck the system. No matter what the reason is, you just can basically keep your mouth shut. But if I wouldn't do it all over again, I would take the badge and I would leave it on somebody's desk and get out of police work. Because the day I can't tell the truth because somebody's pressuring me, and the day the system doesn't want me to tell the truth because somebody's pressuring me, is the day I leave the badge on the desk and walk away.
POPPA was fired for insubordination. One man who confronted truth and consequences.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the DOUG POPPA Podcast from Las Vegas, Nevada. This is episode 141 for Thursday, April 27th, 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, last year I did a podcast, I believe it's episode 79, and I'll have the link in the description section when this video cast is published, and it concerned Wisconsin woman Melissa Trumpy. She was missing since October of 2021, and she has been found. By all accounts, she's presumed this is a homicide. But I'm going to play some. I have a guest on the show today, and his name is Ben Affrunti. And Ben is the father of Melissa's 3 children. And before we bring Ben into the show, I'm going to play about a 7-minute news clip, various news clips. So I'll give you a background if you're not familiar with this case, and then we'll bring Ben into it, and we'll start talking to him.
37-year-old Melissa Trumpy of Monticello, Wisconsin, was last seen Tuesday night. The Carroll County Sheriff's Office says Trumpy might have stopped by Shannon, Illinois, before she disappeared.
Family says Melissa Ann Trumpy was last seen in Shannon, Illinois, at an old boyfriend's house. But they tell me no one has heard from her since Tuesday.
We believe that someone's got to know something that isn't speaking.
Mandy in Beauge is desperately searching for her younger sister, Melissa Ann Trumpy. She tells me Melissa left her job Tuesday night around 10:30. Mandy believes Melissa met up with her boyfriend later that night.
They left together around 12 to 12:30 that night, and he returned between 3 to 4 that morning alone.
Trumpy's truck was found near West Pearl City Road and South Bolton Road, but no sign of her. Now, days into the search, and Mandy is hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst.
Day in and day out, sleeping and breathing my sister, because that is my best friend and my person. She has been my person, so I can't rest until I can bring her home. And she's got 3 children, and they need their mom, and they need closure or they need their mom back.
Mandy believes someone might have hurt Melissa, and she's pleading with the community for help.
There's still no sign of a 37-year-old woman with ties to the state line. We told you Sunday, Melissa Trumpy left work in Monticello, Wisconsin, October 26th. Family members say she was going to her boyfriend's house in Shannon, Illinois. Her car turned up abandoned in rural Freeport.
The boyfriend was arrested the day after she was last seen on unrelated charges. I went to his family's home trying to get some more information.
We're looking to talk with someone and hopefully just finding Melissa. And family really wants to bring her home. Do you know anything?
No, sorry.
And can I ask, who are you?
Sorry, guys.
And the door's shut, but Mandy believes the family knows more than they're saying.
A missing Illinois woman's family travels to Wisconsin in search of answers. No one's seen Melissa Trumpy since she left work October 26th.
The 37-year-old was reportedly headed to her boyfriend's home in Carroll County. Melissa's boyfriend, Derek Hammer, was set to appear in a Wisconsin courtroom today. Rachel Perry was there, and Rachel, Melissa's family left disappointed.
Yeah, Mimi and Eric, they wanted to confront Hammer, and they tell me they believe he knows where Melissa is. Court documents show Hammer has a history with her.
He went the next day and told his teacher that he'd witnessed his mother being struck in the face by Derek Hammer.
Just more than a month before Melissa Trumpy was last seen, her boyfriend Derek Hammer was charged with domestic abuse. His arrest came after Melissa's son told his teacher he saw Hammer yelling at Melissa before the night turned violent.
And Derek pointed a shotgun at Melissa in front of my 6-year-old son, Mateo. So he went into school and he told the teacher about that.
Ben Affrunti is the father of Melissa's kids. He says they desperately want their mom back.
It's hard. I mean, it's heartbreaking. I had my daughter wrote a Christmas wish list to Santa Claus a couple days ago, and came and handed me to that. And I mean, the biggest thing on there she wanted was Santa to bring mom home.
Melissa's family and friends believe Hammer knows where she is. They showed up to his domestic violence hearing in Greene County in Wisconsin Wednesday, expecting to confront him, but were mad when they learned he wasn't there. He's in custody in Carroll County on other charges.
So we were really hoping to just look him in the eyes and let him see us see him, you know, and make him look at us and think about what he's done.
Melissa's sister, Mandy Mboj, says she doesn't understand where she could be.
She doesn't have any means of money or a vehicle or anything like that, so we just need her, but we have everything else of hers.
Carroll County Sheriff Ryan Cloping tells me he cannot confirm or deny if Hammer is a person of interest in Melissa's disappearance. I have asked him repeatedly for an interview. The FBI and Illinois State Police are also assisting on the case. Family tells me they are still searching for her, focusing on where her car was found on Bolton Road in rural Freeport. Hammer was arrested in Carroll County on unrelated charges the day after Melissa was reported missing. This is the first time Mandy and Ben have seen his mugshot from that arrest. It shows injuries to his face. We don't know how he was injured, but Melissa's family has an idea.
Well, I'm glad to know my sister didn't go down without a fight.
Yeah, it definitely looks like he's been in a fight. It's hard to even look at him.
Police haven't identified Derek Hammer as a person of interest in the case. He is now in custody in Stevenson County related to his 2019 drug arrest. Carroll County Sheriff Ryan Cloping gave me a better look at what these searches consist of and told me Melissa's case is being treated in a number of ways, but what I wanted to know is if they're looking at a suspect.
We're looking at every aspect at this point, missing person, homicide, we're looking at every aspect.
Nearly 40 days and countless searches, but still no sign of Melissa Trumpy. Carroll County Sheriff Ryan Cloping says they won't stop searching.
And out of those searches, is that also then include looking for remains?
Correct.
Melissa was last seen in Greene County, Wisconsin, leaving work. It's thought she was headed to her boyfriend's house in Carroll County. Her car was found the next day in rural Freeport.
No body, no crime. Does that apply in a case like this?
There are cases out there where charges have been filed without a body. So it's always a possibility.
But Cloping won't confirm to me if someone has been named a person of interest in Melissa's case.
Just in general of what leads to naming someone a person of interest.
That's something that's all done through our attorneys involved. There's certain things we want to release to make sure that we don't hurt the investigation. We want to make sure that everything is done properly for the family so they can get the answers they need.
Greene County District Attorney Craig Nolan tells me he thinks this is a homicide.
Given the fact that, today's November 30th, we're looking at, 35 days, give or take. We're operating under the assumption that, there's a no-body homicide fundamentally.
Several agencies are now involved, and search crews are using drones, cadaver dogs, and helicopters. Nolan and Cloping are hoping those efforts will lead to Melissa.
Hopefully we can locate her, as soon as possible.
This is high priority. This is as high as they come for our county. We haven't stopped since day one, and we're not going to stop.
There were smiles for Melissa Trumpy and her boyfriend Derek Hammer, but they were also both charged in September with maintaining a drug house. And Melissa Trumpy's sister Mandy Mboj says just before Melissa Trumpy disappeared, The authorities wanted Trumpy to help convict Hammer.
She had actually met with them and was cooperating.
But Maboj was worried, knowing Hammer had previously created danger in Nevada, having been convicted in 2017 of the crime of unlawful possession, manufacture, or disposition of explosives.
Because they knew the man they were dealing with.
Authorities arrested Hammer on charges including having contact with Trumpy in violation of his bail. But his arrest came after Melissa Trumpy went missing.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. Some news clips to give you an idea on Melissa's disappearance. I want to welcome to the show Ben Affrunti. Ben, you on the line?
Yes.
How you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right, Doug. Thanks for having me on your show.
No problem. I know you've been wanting to come on for a while, and I wanted to get you on because those news clips were from 2021, and I've been doing some research since every now and then. I don't see a whole lot of updates. Can you give us, Alyssa's, an idea of, from what you know, what's the status of the case right now as you know it?
Well, Melissa, obviously she hasn't been found yet, which is like the most concerning thing because there's just no closure. It's been a year and a half now. She hasn't had a funeral. No way for the kids or the rest of the family to say goodbye to her or anything, And I think that's probably the hardest part to live with.
Right.
I think the next thing is the fact that they haven't even named Derek as a suspect yet. And I feel like they could have and that they should have done that initially, shortly after her disappearance.
Right.
And there's a lot, the cops have had a lot of evidence from the morning she went missing. They've had a lot of evidence. And I feel like they've done a better job of trying to discredit legitimate evidence than actually find evidence. So it's a tough battle.
Can you explain what you mean by that, Ben?
Well, the investigating agency is in Carroll County, Illinois.
Okay.
And it's the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. Derek has ties in Carroll County, and he has ties through his family because they're one of the oldest, wealthiest, most influential families in the area. His mother's involved in local politics. But then there is, it's a very rural area, and it's not what you'd expect. You when you think of organized crime, you'd think Chicago, the inner city, maybe Rockford or something like that. But there is a underworld there, and the underworld there it's deep. And I legitimately think that there is, I'll just say there is a cover up going on, and they have, that the lead homicide detective, he honestly, it's guy, David Mercado is the lead homicide detective from Carroll County. And I really think that this guy would be a better defense attorney for Derek and the people involved than a investigator. He's definitely done a better job lying, for these guys, to protect these guys, than he has investigating them. So, that's, and I know it's hard because, and I don't have a perfect criminal background, but I have, I believe in law enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to believe that law enforcement has the public's best interests in mind. And I have children, and I believe that, law enforcement is a good thing because it's there to keep us safe. It's there to keep the public safe. But I do believe that the law enforcement in Carroll County is deceptive. And I really, honestly, I think that they're involved with an element of organized crime.
And what makes you think that? I've seen some things on social media raising those issues also. What makes you think that, Ben?
Well, when I say the homicide detective has lied to us, the homicide detective has lied to us about some very, very obvious things. We've caught him in really, really well documented lies protecting these guys. You know?
Okay, can we hold that there? Can you explain to me what is that? Give me those specifics. This is an investigative podcast, so I need to know specifics on your speculation and what you believe.
Okay. Derek's cousin, Stephen Dapkus, began ripping up his linoleum kitchen floor the morning that Melissa disappeared. And this is not the sort of place where anybody moves in and they're doing home decoration. It looks like one of the worst inner city project buildings I've ever seen, but it's smack dab in the middle of a cornfield. This place is like, it's something else. It's monolithic, and it is falling apart, and it is full of drug addicts, and it is not like anywhere. I've met drug addicts that if they went to go look at this place, they wouldn't move in. And nobody's moving into this place and home decorating it, remodeling it. You know, that's just, you couldn't. A bulldozer would be necessary to really remodel this place. You know, you'd have to have a wrecking ball and knock this place down to the ground. So the homicide detective, David Mercado, lied to us about where Derek's cousin lived, denied that Derek's cousin lived at this place, at this address, and he still lives there. Said Stephen, and this is in text messages too, by the way, and I still have these text messages. He said, Stephen Dapkus lives with his mother, and he joked, like, what, is she involved in this too? And I told him, I said, well, if she's telling you that Stephen Dapkus lives with her, then she is involved. And she lives, Stephen Dapkus' mother's is Mimi Monagold, and she lives directly across the street from Derek's mother's house. This is Derek's cousin. And the cop tried to tell me that Stephen Dapkus basically lived across the street from Derek's mother. And he lives 25 miles away outside of Mount Carroll, you know, in this, I don't know, big, giant project-looking building. And the morning that Melissa disappeared, he began ripping up his kitchen floor. And there's a bunch of his, the people that live in the building, his neighbors, have flat out said that something happened to Melissa there. They witnessed Melissa arriving there. They never saw Melissa leaving there. And the guy began ripping up his kitchen floor the very next morning. And when David Mercado finally admitted, and this is after being confronted repeatedly, like Stephen Dapkus does not live with his mother. Stephen Dapkus lives 25 miles away in Mount Carroll, you know, and still does to this day. So then he finally said, well, maybe she lives with him, which is not true. She lives across the street from Derek's mother's house. Then he said that he said two detectives had gone over there, and that if the kitchen floor was ripped out, they would have noticed it. Well, somebody sent us, you know, at least a dozen pictures of this kitchen floor ripped out, and it is, I mean, it's blatantly obvious. If investigators miss this, they are blind or have some mental functioning issues, because I mean, a blind person would feel it. You know, it's like, it's very obvious that the linoleum kitchen floor was ripped out.
And you think the reason for that is you think maybe she was over at the house? Maybe there's a foul play with her?
I believe that there was some DNA evidence of hers that was removed from there. I'm not saying 100%. We don't know where. Basically, we believe that Melissa's life was taken that night. We don't know where it was taken at. If her life was taken at Derek's mother's house, there seemed to be some evidence there. Derek's mother made several 911 calls that morning, at least two that we know of, and she basically caught Derek in the act of doing something. Now, this is hours later than we believe that she was at his cousin's house. This is like 3 or 4 in the morning. Basically, I mean, to give you like a timeline, Melissa left her job in Wisconsin at about 10:30 at night.
And what date was that? October 26th?
October 26th, yeah.
And where did she work? Where did she work?
She worked for her friend Nicole Crooks. Nicole is quadriplegic, and Melissa did in-home care for her. Nicole's also been her friend for a lot of years, since they were little girls. So she left Nicole's house at about 10:30 at night, and she headed down to Illinois, which was, I'll say maybe a mistake on her part, because police in Wisconsin were pressuring Melissa at this time to cooperate against Derek in some criminal cases that he had in Wisconsin. So the day before Melissa disappeared, October 25th, Monday, she had custody court. And as she was leaving the custody court, some Wisconsin detectives, Greene County, Wisconsin detectives, pulled her and her mother aside, and they questioned her for about 2 hours about Derek in a high-speed chase driving Melissa's vehicle. And this is when there was already a no contact order in place, because a month before Melissa disappeared, there was a assault and gun incident where Derek assaulted Melissa and pointed a gun at her in front of our son, and he was 6 at the time.
Okay, hold that thought for a second. Where did that incident take place? What location was that?
In Wisconsin, at Melissa's home, where she lived, and my children were there. Our children were present. So Derek Derek was screaming about some pills that he couldn't find. And he hit Melissa with, I don't know, a spoon or a kitchen spatula, some sort of kitchen utensil. And then he pointed a shotgun at her. So the next day, I get a call from Melissa, and she's like, the CPS, the Child Protective Service, might be calling me. And I'm like, about what? And she said, well, Mateo went to school and said that Derek pointed a gun at me. And now Melissa spent 2 years completely protecting this guy. And so my son told about the gun incident, told he seen Derek, hitting his mother and pointing a gun at her. The CPS got involved. They contacted the police. They went and they raided Melissa's home, and they found some guns, and they found like a small amount of drugs, and they charged both Melissa and Derek with the drugs. Derek got gun charges, domestic, and they both got child endangerment charges, I think, because of, the kids were present. So at that point in time, and thank God, honestly, the best thing that's happened since this situation is that my custody at that point went from 50% to full-time custody, full placement.
Look,
And
hold that thought for a second, and because I don't want to lose some of the things I want to talk about. Okay, so October 26th, about 10:30 p.m., Melissa left the person who last saw her. And you believe, and according to the news articles, she was headed towards Illinois, and that's where her car was found, over the Wisconsin line in Illinois, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Now, Derek, at the time, was living where? Was he living with her in Wisconsin, or was he living in Illinois?
He had been, but there was a no contact order over the gun incident. So he wasn't supposed to be around Melissa. Well, 2 weeks later, after the gun incident, and this was a couple weeks before she disappeared, he was in a high-speed chase with her vehicle. So the cops were really pressuring her. She was saying, she didn't know who took her vehicle. She left her keys in it. Some random person came and took her vehicle. She didn't want to admit that it was Derek. And the truth is, literally, she protects this. When the media portrays Melissa as some sort of cooperative witness against him,
right?
That is absolutely not true. She was an uncooperative witness. She protected him literally till the very end.
Well, her sister said on that news clip that we saw that she believes Melissa. This was from her sister. We saw the news clip. Was the police wanted her to cooperate in testifying, in essence, against Derek? That's what she said on the news clip.
They wanted Melissa to cooperate. They pressured Melissa, but she was very uncooperative, and she was still trying to protect Derek, literally, up until, she disappeared.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Ben, were you married to Melissa or not?
No. We have the two youngest of her 3 kids are hers and mine.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm putting something on the screen that's posted here because the news clips didn't mention this. Now, I'll have the link to the podcast I did last year that has a lot more news clips on it, and then my commentary on that. I think it was episode 79. But what you have on the screen here, ladies and gentlemen, is Derek Hammer's Nevada Department of Corrections record. Now, in 2016, he was arrested by the Las Vegas Metro Police out here in Las Vegas for basically manufacturing some type of explosive. He was also charged with battery by strangulation on his girlfriend and the woman he was involved with at the time. And he was sentenced to Nevada Department of Corrections. He was in state prison in Nevada, I think in 2018. He didn't serve his full sentencing. He was put out on parole, I believe in 2019. And then obviously left at some point. He left Nevada and then went over to Wisconsin. But he is a convicted felon. Those are 2 felony charges in Nevada, and irregardless of what charges he has out in Illinois, Wisconsin, whatever's over there. But these charges came from the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department in 2016, and like I said, it's an explosives charge and battery by strangulation, which means he had his hand around a woman's throat and tried to strangle her, and she didn't die. But that's what he was charged with. That's what he was sent to state prison for. Now, Derek, was Melissa aware of the charges on him from Nevada?
Okay, now this is where Derek's mother really misled Melissa, because we heard about Derek's charges. We didn't really know the full extent of Derek's charges, and I'd like to talk to you about that a little bit more here. But when we heard that Derek had some kidnapping charges, he had shooting at a police officer's daughter in 2009, an Ogle County, Illinois police officer's daughter. And then we heard he had some sort of like kidnapping or hostage situation in Nevada. So I told Melissa about it and my concerns about it, and she said, don't worry about it. I talked to Derek's mother about that, Denise Hammer, Derek's mother. She told me that Denise Hammer told her it was all a big misunderstanding, and Derek got in trouble because he was trying to make sure that his girlfriend took care of her kids. And I'm like, Melissa, that doesn't even sound right. This guy got some sort of hostage situation, and they're not going to give him a hostage situation in prison time for making sure that his girlfriend took care of her kids. So I really feel like the mother has been a big problem in enabling Derek. And if you hear, now I've talked to the young lady from Nevada. Her name's Lindsay Yates.
Mm-hmm.
The situation, if I tell you about the situation, you won't even believe it, but it really is public record. So Derek had this guy does big marijuana grows, right?
Right.
He had a huge marijuana grow in Lindsay Yates' home. So Lindsay Yates' children were supposed to be coming back home, and she got like cold feet or something and said, Derek, you got to get these weed plants out of here. And there was like 500 plus weed plants, I guess. So he flipped out. He held her hostage for 2 days, strangled her, beat her repeatedly for a couple days, and manufactured a bunch of bombs and planted them all around her place and threatened to blow her and him and the responding police officers up. And I know it sounds like something out of a movie, but it absolutely, that's the way she explained it. And then so the cops, she said the cops were in hazmat suits, white hazmat suits, for 2 days, removing marijuana plants and bombs out of his house. And then when they left, they accidentally left his car. So before Derek's mother paid to have Derek's car towed away from there, she went and looked in Derek's car, and she described what she found in Derek's car as a murder kit. There were shovels, tarps, and jugs of acid in his car.
And when was this?
So,
What time frame are we talking about now?
2016 or 17.
Okay.
Less than 2 years for a hostage situation. Like, to just say, I know that when you read the criminal charges, this has strangulation and some explosives, but that's the full story.
Yeah, there were
He
other
did- he
charges.
did
I don't
have
have them on the screen. Sorry to interrupt you. There were other charges that the district attorney dropped. I reviewed all this last year as best I could,
Yep.
and then that's what they do. They stack a bunch of charges and they want you to offer you a plea deal. But he was he pleaded. He's convicted felon for the battery by strangulation and the manufacture of the explosive device, whatever it was. So what I'm asking is, as far as you know, did Melissa know that he was a convicted felon from Nevada? That's what I'm asking.
She knew that he was a convicted felon, but she let the mother manipulate her into believing that it was some sort of misunderstanding. Derek was. She not only did Denise Hammer paint it as a misunderstanding, she made Derek out to be some sort of hero to children. He got these criminal charges because he was trying to make sure his girlfriend took care of her kids.
Okay. When the news is talking about a drug house, and that's what house are they referring to? The house.
There's another one. No, he gets out on parole from Nevada, right, and starts another big marijuana grow in Illinois, and he still hasn't been to court for that yet. And I'll tell you, I went over to his marijuana grow house and I smashed his garage up a little bit with the Chevy Tahoe, just trying to keep him away from my kids because this guy's on heroin and other, hard drugs. And Melissa had him in my home when I wasn't home. And so I kind of, I don't know, reacted, trying to keep this dude, away from my children. And knowing, I bought marijuana from him a few times, knowing like just how dangerous he was. I don't know.
Because I'm getting a little confused. If I get confused, the listeners are getting confused. From the news clips and from what I read and what I played on the news clips, they said on the news, those news clips that the folks listened to before I brought you into the program, that she was arrested with him for operating a drug house. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Where was that drug house at? What was the location?
The gun incident when she got assaulted by him and he pulled a gun on her, she got charged too, because when they came, here's the thing. Now, when people like in Derek's family in Illinois, you go to Shannon, Illinois, and this family spread this false narrative. Oh, Melissa ran off because she's got criminal charges. Here's the thing. Melissa was a first offender. She'd never been in trouble in her entire life. She got her first criminal charges as a victim because Derek pointed a gun at her and assaulted her.
Okay, hang on a second.
So
that's what I'm asking. Where did that take place? Whose home and where?
That was at Melissa's home. That wasn't the other marijuana grow. That was actually prior to that in Illinois.
Okay, forget about the marijuana grow prior to this.
Yep.
When he pulled a shotgun on her and the kids were present,
Yep.
Where was that? What city, what state was that?
That was in Monticello, Wisconsin.
And whose home was it?
Farm in the country right outside of Monticello.
And whose home was it?
Melissa's home.
Okay, is that were you living there at some point in time with her or no?
I did prior, and then basically she, was disappearing at night, and so her and I split up, and she was hanging out with Derek at his other marijuana grow, and so when she wasn't coming home, I just packed my stuff, I moved out. 2 weeks later, she moved Derek in, and I tried to talk to her. I tried to say, hey, why don't you give it like 6 months or a year? You guys have a healthy relationship for 6 months or a year. I'll support you, moving him in or whatever, being in a relationship with him. But don't just move him in 2 weeks after, I move out,
Okay, so she's in this house now living with Derek.
Yep.
Threatens
And my
her
children,
and the kids, threatens them, and they're what type of drugs, when they said a drug house, what type of drugs, narcotics are we talking about, as far as you know?
Some marijuana and some cocaine.
Okay. So this happened when he pulled a shotgun on her, the news said it, but how long ago was that before she ended up disappearing on October 26th? Do you know?
Like roughly a month and a half. The gun incident happened on September 7th, and she disappeared October 27th. So a month and 20 days.
She disappeared in October of 2021. Okay, now, she was last seen on October 26th at about 10:30 with the friend you said she was taking care of. Was that the last person that you know of that saw her alive?
Derek's mother admitted that Melissa was there showed up around 11. She claims she went to bed around 11:30 and didn't see Melissa anymore after that.
Okay, now hang on a second. When you say Derek's mother saw her, where was that physically? Where was it?
Derek's mother's home in Shannon, Illinois.
And what night are we talking? We're talking about the night of October 26th?
The 26th, right before, shortly before midnight, like maybe 11:30 at night.
Okay.
11:30 to midnight.
Okay, so bear with me here, okay?
Yep.
Because all this is relevant to the whole case, and that's what I don't know a lot of the specifics on it. So about 10:30 p.m. on October 26th is when she left the friend she was taking care of in Wisconsin. And then you're telling me that she went to Illinois, because that's where the car was found without her in it, in Illinois. But you're saying that same night, after 10:30 p.m. in Wisconsin, she was seen at Derek's home in Illinois. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Okay. I'm just going to throw this out there because I don't know the answer, and she's not around. The family, I hate to say this, but this is obviously a homicide. I mean, I've seen a sister basically. This is obviously a homicide. She's not, she wasn't abducted for a kidnapping. She didn't commit suicide because they did the search around the vehicle. So if she did, it was a long ways off. So we're going under the premise now. This is just like the district attorney said. I have to agree with him. This is a homicide case without a body right now. So Derek's mother says, from what you're telling me, that Melissa was at Derek's house in Illinois on the evening of October 26th after she had left her Wisconsin residence. Is that correct, is what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay.
And the police also have some GPS data from her truck. She had a rental truck at the time because Derek damaged her vehicle in the high-speed chase 2 weeks earlier. So she was driving a rental truck.
Okay.
And her rental truck sat outside of Derek's mother's house from that, I don't know, I guess maybe 11:30, 11 something at night until maybe 4:30 in the morning.
So now we're talking the 27th of October, 2021.
27th, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Where was we saw the photograph on the news clips, but where her pickup truck was found, the rental pickup truck you're telling me about,
Yep.
how many miles was that from Derek's home?
Roughly, now I don't know specifically, but I'm going to say between 10 and 15 miles from Shannon.
Okay. But the way you understand it is before the 27th, when the truck was found abandoned, that truck and Melissa were at his home, allegedly, on the night of October 26th after she had left Wisconsin. Is that correct, what I'm assuming here?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know, I'm asking a couple of questions. If you don't know, you don't know. I saw the Bolton Road, I think, where it was found. Do you know what direction the truck was facing when they found the truck? In other words, was it facing going to Shannon or going away from Shannon? Just
the
some.
Truck, from what we didn't see the truck. We were there searching for Melissa literally within by the next evening, because in the afternoon we saw that there was some SWAT team stuff going on, and there was calls to Melissa's employer and to Melissa's mother that something had happened with Derek and something had happened with Melissa. Melissa also hadn't shown up at work for Nicole's that morning. So we were in Shannon relatively shortly after that afternoon, I'd say 6 or 7 o'clock that night. And we went to the area where her truck had been found. It had already been towed at that point.
Who found the truck,
So,
Derek? Not Derek.
They found the truck,
Ben.
but according to police, because police showed up while we were there and told us the way the truck was facing, you could see skid marks, kind of not like the truck had skidded out, but just like it had driven down into the ditch. You could see where the tire marks and it was facing towards Freeport, Illinois, which is like maybe 22 miles or something from Shannon.
Is that going towards Wisconsin or going away?
Away from Shannon, towards Freeport.
So the truck was found off the highway in a ditch?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know who found the truck?
I don't know 100% sure. I do know that I believe some neighbors may have also called in about the truck because they thought that it was odd being parked down there. And I think at first the guy said he thought maybe it was hunters, but they were parked kind of strange in a strange spot where he didn't really know. But I'm not 100% sure how the police figured out that her truck was there. But by the time that we were down there searching for her truck had already been towed.
Okay. Do you know the time? The truck was found on the evening of October 26th or early morning or later on October 27th. Do you know?
I believe on October 27th, later on.
Okay. And you said, as far as you know, they couldn't get anything out of the GPS on the truck?
They have some very incriminating things from the GPS, actually, and I'd like to get into some of that. But since you're talking about Bolton Road, can I mention something about Bolton Road?
Let me tell you something, Ben. Melissa's, for all intents and purposes, is not in this world anymore. Okay, you say whatever you want to say on this podcast, because that's what this podcast is. It's an investigative podcast. And whatever you say, if it's speculation, say I'm speculating. If you know something the police told you, then that's what you say. Say whatever you want. You're not. Nobody's putting handcuffs on here to say you can't say anything. You say whatever you want to say.
Okay, and I appreciate that. So, and this is also public knowledge. In 2008, Derek's father, Jeff Hammer, was murdered. He was run down by a vehicle and left to die. And he was left to die on Bolton Road, just shortly, like maybe a few miles away from where her truck was found at. And like Melissa's situation, where Derek was the last person to speak to Melissa, supposedly Derek was the last person to speak to his father too.
And what was the father's cause of death?
Like a car had hit him. Two cars, actually, this is the official story. Two cars hit him. The second car stopped in it and called cops or ambulance or whatever. The second car administered help. The first car supposedly fled. I have my own theory on that. I think maybe Derek staged something to look like his dad had been in a car accident. Somebody hit him and just hit and run. But at the same time, and everybody talks about how smart Derek is. Derek's so smart. Derek's so smart. I don't get why, if he's so smart, there's got to be millions of roads in the United States, why he would leave Melissa's truck on the very same road that his dad was found murdered on. And his dad's death is still a cold case homicide to this day, And I don't know. When I think about that, I find that extremely bizarre.
Okay,
it's either,
go ahead.
I don't know, like either the world's biggest screw up, or it's like giving the world a middle finger and saying I can do whatever I want.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Right now, what is the status of Derek Hammer? Is he incarcerated for those other crimes, or is he out? What as far as you know, where is he in now right now?
Now this is actually really upsetting because for all the charges he had in Wisconsin, which there was quite a few, and it was, some years worth of charges adding up. He was facing 180 something years, and I guess now he's cut some sort of plea deal for 5 years in and 5 years out on his Wisconsin charges. He's actually getting sentenced on the 1st of May. So the DA, which I was actually so impressed with how hard the Wisconsin DA was fighting for Melissa and fighting to keep Derek in jail. I don't know. He messaged us a couple weeks ago and called and said that he was making a deal with Derek's attorney and for a plea bargain, and he's going to have 5 years in, 5 years out. But the sad thing is he's probably already got 2 years in on the 5, so who knows how much time he'll even do on it.
So he's currently incarcerated. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. He kept bonding out. He kept bailing out, and then he went over and he threatened his neighbor when he was on bail the last time. And people were really upset he was on bail because he hasn't been charged for what happened to Melissa yet. And so he gets out. He's out for about a week, and he goes over and he threatens his mother's neighbor. I have my own theory about that too. I really think that Derek brought some unwanted attention to some of his organized crime friends that are directly involved in Melissa's disappearance along with Derek. And I think he brought some unwanted attention to them. And I think he went over and he threatened his next door neighbors so he could put himself back in jail because he figured that they're going to make him the next missing person like Derek and them made Melissa a missing person.
But that's speculative. We don't know. Has he been identified as a suspect / person of interest in the disappearance of Melissa?
Yep.
He has or he hasn't?
No, he has not been. No. But then somebody told us that once they identify him as a suspect, they only have a limited amount of time to actually bring charges. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know Illinois law enough, but a guy from Illinois had said that they have like 90 days or something like that to bring charges against him if they call him a suspect. And I don't think that we have that law here in Wisconsin, but it is possible that maybe is why they're not. And then at the same time, I just think that they're scrambling, trying to figure out any way that they can. I mean, I don't feel like they're building a case against him. I feel like they're trying to break a case against him, get him acquitted or screw the case up so bad, mishandle it so bad. And
let me ask you a question. According to the news clips, the Illinois State Police and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, were involved in this investigation. Do you know that for a fact?
I don't know about the Illinois State Police because they have actually denied their own involvement. There is a whole bunch of different counties in Illinois involved, and then Wisconsin has also aided and done some of their own investigation down there too. But the Wisconsin cop doing the investigation is also a recent transfer from Illinois to Wisconsin. So I don't know. I can say as far as Illinois law enforcement themselves, I have lost all faith in them. We've been pressuring since the very beginning for the feds to actually pick up and take the case, which you almost think the guns alone. Derek's a 2-time kidnapper. He shot a police officer's daughter. He's held hostages. He's got bomb situations. You'd almost think that the 3 guns alone that he got caught with would be enough. And the fact that there's 2 states involved. Melissa was a witness, which is obvious witness tampering. And I know there's federal laws that have to deal with witness tampering. And you would think that the feds would just pick up the case against Derek and be the lead investigative agency, but they're not. They said that they are only assisting Carroll County. But then Carroll County has so many different conflicts of interest with Derek's mother being a local politician there. And I believe the organized crime. I really do.
Well, the FBI has to have a federal nexus to get involved in the case. They just can't get involved in the case if there's 2 agencies, state agencies running it. There's got to be a federal nexus. Now, I want to get back to the shotgun and when all that happened. Now, he's a convicted felon out of Nevada. Yep. The police had to know that. Yep. Did they charge him with possession of the felon in possession of a firearm related to the incident? They did?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
But they only charged him state. He's a felon in possession of firearms. They didn't charge him federally. And that's what I'm trying to say. I wish that they would have charged him federally, you know, and that the feds would actually pick up the investigation and handle this investigation themselves.
Let me ask you a question. I'm just asking these things because it's my mind the way it goes. He threatened to kill Melissa in front of the kids about a month before. Is that correct?
I don't know that he threatened to kill her. He pointed a gun at her, and he hit her with a kitchen spatula or like a spoon or something.
Okay, so you attempted assault, or threatening with the firearm, whatever. Why would she still be going out to Illinois to meet him?
You know, I think there's a couple different reasons. A, Derek got Melissa strung out on some hard drugs, so she's not thinking clearly, you know. B, I really truly believe that Melissa really loved and cared about Derek. Maybe for the first time in her whole life to ever truly love someone. I believe she just loved Derek. And I think that at the same time that the cops in Wisconsin were pressuring Melissa to give them evidence on Derek, this is what I really believe. I believe Melissa went down there and told Derek he needed to run, that he needed to go on the lam, because the cops in Wisconsin were after him. You know, she wasn't a cooperative witness. She was a very uncooperative witness. I think she went down there and tried to tell him, like, you know, they were pressuring her about her vehicle because A, he had the no contact order with her, and he was driving her car, and he got in a high speed chase, and he outran the police and then blew up the engine of her vehicle and ended up ditching it. Then what happened is he approached some kids and asked them for a ride to Melissa's house. The kids were scared, terrified of him. They're like, this weirdo just pops out of the woods, and Derek is weird. This is the guy that, you talk about bad vibes. This guy just exudes bad vibes. So Derek pops out of the woods on these kids, freaks these kids out, asked them for a ride. They refused to give him a ride. The one kid actually had to tell him that his mother had Life 360 on him. So then Derek left them alone, went back to Melissa's vehicle. The next thing you know, those kids he'd asked for a ride, Derek went over and stole their neighbor's vehicle. And then he drove that back out to Melissa's house. So now the cops come out to ask Melissa why her vehicle, which they must have like got a picture of her license plate or something like that, was in a high-speed chase. And they go out there and then they find this stolen vehicle from the neighbors of the kids he'd asked for a ride. So they were pressuring Melissa to cooperate about that in here in Wisconsin. And she wasn't cooperating. As a matter of fact, she was ducking the cops for about 2 weeks. She wasn't even coming home. She was staying down in Illinois at Derek's mother's house, at Denise Hammer's house, which basically, now Denise Hammer bonded Derek out over the gun incident. There was a no contact order written into the bond stating Derek Hammer is to have no contact with victim Melissa Trumpy. This whole 2 week period of time after the high-speed chase, Denise Hammer, Derek's mother, helped facilitate 2 weeks worth of contact by letting Melissa and Derek stay at her house together. So Derek knew Melissa had custody court over the gun incident, right? Mm-hmm. That was the Monday, the day before Melissa disappeared. Melissa disappeared Tuesday night into Wednesday morning on the 26th and the 27th, but the 25th, she had custody court. That's when she was coming out of custody court, the cops pulled her aside and questioned her about Derek in a high-speed chase.
Okay, so let me I got a couple questions here. Did Melissa have a cell phone?
Yes.
Was the cell phone recovered?
The cell phone was.
Where?
Now, the crazy thing is, when they recovered it...
Where was it recovered?
Now,
where was it recovered?
I believe it was in her truck when they found her truck.
Let me ask you another question, as far as you know. How extensive was the search, the radius, in the vicinity of where the truck was found?
Now, we did our own volunteer searches too. The cops did a few large-scale searches, and they said, this is what they told us. They said it could be any direction, 20 miles in either way, that her remains, whatever we're looking for, could be 20 miles any direction from Shannon. So, 40 miles square, basically, or round radius.
Well, Ben, that may or may not be, because what we have here is an abandoned vehicle with her cell phone still in it, and I'm going to get back to the cell phone in a second. So at some point, and we don't know this is what we don't know, was she alone in that vehicle when she was driving from Wisconsin to Illinois? And then if she went over Derek's house, is like you're saying that allegedly she was over the house sometime that night, or the night of October 26th, and did she leave the house with somebody else in that vehicle? And then at some point, for some reason, the vehicle was stopped or forced off the road, and somebody could have abducted her, taken to another location, and maybe that's where we know this is all speculation, because the truck being in a ditch with her body not around it leads me to believe either somebody was in that vehicle with her, or the truck was forced off the road by somebody else, and then she was taken out of the vehicle and abducted and maybe murdered somewhere else. But then my question is, why would you just do that? Why don't you just commit the crime right there, being the car's already off the road? So the fact is that you have a car abandoned, a truck that she rented with no Melissa and Melissa's phone. The question is, how did that truck get abandoned and found, like you said, it was found in a ditch? Was she forced?
They have GPS evidence. Now, let me tell you this. There's a lot of very, very strange things to this GPS evidence. And there's very strange things to other witnesses' statements from that night. So, Denise Hammer said the last time she saw Melissa was about 11:30 at night. Then she said she went to bed, right? She woke up at 4 in the morning and Derek was doing something, and Derek had some big tarps in a Christmas tree bag and was loading things into a vehicle, and whatever he was doing scared the mother enough that the mother called 911 several times. But the GPS evidence is even crazier, right? Especially because there is witness statements saying Melissa was somewhere else with Derek. And the witness statements are saying Melissa was at Stephen Dapkus's apartment, Derek's cousin, with Derek. So Melissa's vehicle sat outside the mother's. From the time Melissa got there, the GPS shows Melissa's vehicle sat by Derek's mother's house from that 11:30 at night until 4 something in the morning. Now here's the thing. Derek's cousin, Stephen Dapkus, his neighbors were saying Melissa and Derek showed up there about 1 in the morning. Now mind you, the next day this guy started ripping out his linoleum floor. Something happened there. It's people have said something happened there. What they've said is they said that Derek hit Melissa over the head with something. They said that she was bleeding and she left there. And 2 or 3 vehicles left the cousin's house at about 2 or 3 in the morning. Now this is 25 miles away from Derek's mother's house. This is in Mount Carroll.
And who when you say they, you're telling, who are these they? Who's saying all this?
Stephen Dapkus's neighbors, like about 4 of them. So and police refused to investigate and go over and even talk to these people.
How do you know? Ben, how do you know that? How do you know that they didn't do that? Are they just not telling you? They first of all, they shouldn't be telling people everything that they're doing in a case. I mean, that's.
I understand that. So we were doing our own investigation, and we were talking to people, and people would just get on Melissa's. Melissa's got a couple different missing persons groups on Facebook, and so people would introduce us to people. Oh, this is Stephen Dapkus's neighbor. We go over to Stephen Dapkus's house. We meet some more neighbors. We did some searches at Stephen Dapkus's house. We talked to Stephen Dapkus's landlord. We talked to a whole bunch of people over there. They are saying, the neighbors are saying Melissa and Derek showed up there maybe 12:30, 1 o'clock at night, right? That's what they're saying. And the cops are trying to say, no, it was the night before. But these people are very insistent that it was that night. And the next morning, he started ripping out his flooring. But mind you, Melissa's truck is still sitting in front of Derek's mother's house till maybe 4 in the morning. So.
And how do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that?
Because I've talked to police about that.
And the cops told you that. The cop said, listen, hang on a second. I want to get this down, so listen, because I don't want this getting confusing. The police told you that they identified Melissa's truck at Derek's house after she had left Wisconsin on the night of the 26th, maybe early morning hours of the 27th.
Yep.
And there's another thing, too, Ben. There's no saying that Melissa was even driving that truck when it was forced into the ditch. You know, if something happened to her, something could have happened to her at a different location, and somebody got rid of the truck.
There's a lot. There's a lot to this. So, Melissa's vehicle. Now these neighbors are saying that Stephen and Derek and Melissa all showed up together. So, which might make sense because Stephen's mother lives across the street from Derek's mother. So, like, Melissa showed up, and they went over to Stephen Dapkus' house.
Now stop right there, and let's do this a little bit. What date and a time are we talking about now?
The morning of the 27th. So midnight, right around midnight on. So like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, supposedly Melissa, Derek, and Stephen showed up at Stephen's house. And there was other people over there too. So according to witnesses at Stephen Dapkus's, because the place is like a party house for all the, and the whole building is basically, like I said, it's like a drug infested.
And the police told you this. The police told you this?
No. The police are saying Melissa's vehicle sat outside of Derek's house all night. This is what the witnesses, this is what Stephen Dapkus' neighbors told us. Between Melissa's sister, Mandy, and other people that were helping us in searches for Melissa on Melissa's Facebook groups. There's almost 9,000 people between the 3 Facebook groups for Melissa. So there's more to this, Doug. There's more to the GPS evidence, right? So cops say, well, they don't think anything happened at Stephen Dapkus' house. Well, Stephen began ripping up his kitchen floor that morning. There's some DNA evidence at Stephen's house. I'm not saying Melissa was killed there, but I do believe Melissa was there that night. And there's too many witnesses saying that she was there for it not to have happened. And he didn't start ripping out his floor because he's making this place any prettier, because you can't. It's not making it any more livable. And we have over a dozen pictures of the floor being ripped out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that a concerned neighbor took. So
now let me ask another question. Do you know if the police obtained, well, they should, there's information they can obtain from the cell phone and the cell phone records from the provider, whatever cell phone provider. Did they tell you anything about that?
The cell phone was shut off at about midnight, and they said there was something called VPN blocker on the phone. Now, Derek had Melissa super paranoid after the whole high-speed chase, and the cops are looking for him. The cops kept going at that 2 weeks after the high-speed chase. Cops kept showing up to Melissa's house. That's why she wasn't going home, because she didn't want to talk to them, because she was trying to protect Derek. So he had her paranoid that the cops were following her around. So she put some sort of thing on her phone to basically where it like throws off the signal. Like if she makes a call or she does something on the internet, it looks like she's doing it from China or from Pakistan or from, something called a VPN blocker. The police told us that this thing is on her phone, but they said her phone was shut off around midnight. And from after the time she got to Derek's mother's house, the phone was shut off. But her vehicle sat there till about 4 in the morning. Now, around 4 in the morning...
Okay, hang on a second. Hold that thought for a second. Did the police tell you that before the phone was turned off, they ping, because they can do that where it's ping, because it's always pinging, even if you're not making a call. Did they locate by cell phone where that cell phone was to show that indeed it was over in the vicinity of Derek's house?
I believe so.
But you don't know.
I believe so.
But you don't know
I
for
know
sure.
that it was shut off at about midnight. I know her phone was shut off sometime around midnight, but her vehicle sat outside of Derek's house. Now, there's more to this. After 4 in the morning, this story gets crazier and crazier. So after 4 in the morning, Derek's mother makes 2 911 calls. Supposedly, she caught Derek, and she made some incriminating statements to police that morning. She caught Derek in the act of doing something to Melissa.
How do you know
She
that?
called
Where is this information coming from?
Because the cops said that she made some. They won't release the 911 calls. They say it's all part of an active investigation. They won't release it, but they said flat out that she said some things that they took were incriminating.
Okay, let's stop there for a second. What cops, name the cops and the agency they work for who told you this? Who are they? Wisconsin, Illinois, who are they?
The lieutenant from Stevenson County, who's also investigating, the head lieutenant, Bradley Curtis, and even the Ryan Klepping and David Mercado, they've kind of used some of these things to try and argue the whole thing about Stephen Dapkus's apartment.
Okay, you're mentioning, hang on a second. You're mentioning a couple of law enforcement officers' names. Say the names again and tell me what agency they work for. What do they work for?
Stevenson County Sheriff's Department.
And where is that? Is that in Illinois or Wisconsin?
In Illinois.
And what about the next guy?
So then the homicide detective in Carroll County is David Mercado. And he is the one I would say out of all of them that I don't trust any of them, but I trust him the least because we've caught him in so many blatant lies.
And where is Carroll County?
Carroll County is where Shannon is. Carroll County is like northern Illinois. It butts up to the Mississippi River. So it's like, I don't know where you'd say in the state. It's like the western.
Okay, hang on a second, because I don't know, and neither do the listeners know anything about the location. Why is okay? Let me put it this way: what's the connection between Carroll County, Illinois, and Melissa's disappearance? Let's do it that way.
Well, Carroll County is where Derek's mother's house is in Carroll County.
Okay, and then hang on a second. I understand that.
Carroll County.
Okay, Stevenson County, Illinois. What's the connection to Melissa's disappearance?
That's where Melissa's truck was found out. Her truck was found right over the county line in Stevenson County.
The county line from Wisconsin.
Yes. No. The county line from Carroll County into Stevenson County. They're both counties in Illinois.
Okay. I got you.
The truck's found in one county. She went missing from the last place she's seen is at the mother's house.
Okay.
Her truck's found in the next county over.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. Oh, well, you're not going to know that. I don't know why these cops are telling everybody all this information, number one. As a journalist, I want to hear all this because that's what I do. Yep. But as a former criminal investigator, I'm like, why are they talking about this? This is all pertinent information that's pertinent to what probably most likely is a homicide investigation, and they shouldn't be telling people what they're doing. I mean, that's the way I look at it. You keep everything quiet, but who knows? That's neither here nor there. As far as the journalist is concerned, that's what I'm doing now. Independent investigative journalist. I want to hear everything, but I'm also a cop. The 50% of the cop in me is still in there, is saying, why are these detectives running their mouth? Which is similar to something else I was working on with a unsolved double homicide out here. There just seems like a lot of cops running their mouth out there about a lot of stuff they shouldn't be talking about. So that's we got the cell phone. As far as you know, we talked about that. Were you ever interviewed by? Were you ever actually interviewed, brought in and interviewed by any law enforcement officer or agency?
Yeah, I was brought in and interviewed by the Greene County.
And where's Greene County is where?
Greene County, Wisconsin.
Okay. Yeah, because you would be the one you would talk. You always talk to people closest to Newark because that's just what you do.
So also, I went in and talked to David Mercado, in Carroll County, the Carroll County homicide detective. I mean, I can say this, is that it understandably that anybody that is close to Melissa or has, I mean, I have children with her. I'm her ex. We had a pretty ugly split up over Derek, you know. So
now, when you say ex-husband or ex-boyfriend?
Ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
Yeah, we were never married, but we have 2 children together.
The news said 3 children. What is there a third one, or was that a mistake?
Yeah, Melissa has an older daughter, Delana, from her marriage. She was she was married before we were together, and I was married to somebody else before we were together. So we're each divorced, but we never married. Melissa and I never married.
And now, where are these 3? Who has custody of these 3 children now?
John Trumpy has custody of her oldest, Delana.
Who's John Trumpy? Who is John Trumpy?
That is her Melissa's ex-husband from before me.
Okay.
And then I have custody of my 2, of her 2 youngest.
Okay. We're at 1 hour, Ben, in 10 minutes.
Yep.
You know, we can go a little bit longer. I don't care. I don't want this thing running maybe over an hour and a half or an hour and 10 minutes. Anything else that they told you, the police, that they told you, not speculation, but other stuff that you heard is where is this? When was the last time, as far as you know, did anybody update you on the status of Melissa's disappearance?
Oh, they haven't in a long time. They really haven't.
And what about with Melissa's sister? Have they anybody talked to her?
No. They did just recently put out a statement today. Carroll County did.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the thing, is that we've been filing stuff against them, like stuff with the state's attorney general. They have something called OPEIG, and that's like an inspector general for the state. We filed stuff with the Illinois State Police. We filed stuff with the feds. We filed stuff against them for mishandling, misconduct, for basically for what we feel is a cover-up. Now, there are some things when we're talking about Melissa's truck and her GPS that we haven't even gotten into the more of the odd, bizarre things that have happened that morning. Now, I told you Derek's mother called 911 a couple times about 4-something in the morning when she caught Derek in the middle of doing something. So Derek left his mother's house with some Christmas tree bags. With his mother said a tarp or a Christmas tree bag with something big in it.
Okay, stop there for a second. How do you know that? Who told you that?
The police.
The police told you that?
Yes.
Okay.
And we've also gotten that in some witness statements from people in Shannon, Illinois, that work with her through the village of Shannon. And I'm not going to name the people because I don't want to put them out there. But the police told us that, and some people in the village of Shannon that are close to Denise Hammer, that Denise Hammer told that she's seen Derek loading something big in a tarp or a Christmas tree bag into a gray truck. And she denied that truck was Melissa's. She said into a gray truck in the morning. But we know that Melissa's truck was sitting there until 4:30 in the morning.
And what color was Melissa's truck?
It's a rental truck, and it was like two-tone silver and gray Nissan. I think it's Titan, the Tundra, Toyota Tundra. That's what it is, not a Nissan. So two-tone gray, like silver and gray, Toyota Tundra. So here's where things get even weirder. Derek leaves his mother's house very quickly because his mother's just called 911 on him. Melissa's truck is GPSed from Derek's mother's house to a piece of property that Derek's uncle, Joe Hammer Jr., owns.
And who told you that? Who told you that?
The police, right?
Jesus.
There's an airplane hangar for a crop duster on this property. There is the shed that the plane sits in, right? It's just like a little grass runway. And there's a shed there with a plane in it, a crop duster.
Right.
So the shed has cameras on it, right? Now, this is his uncle's property, but the people that own the plane are separate. They are, I think, the Sneak family. Brian Sneak. I think his dad actually owns the plane, but his dad is deceased. But I believe the plane may still be registered to his dad. So they have Melissa's vehicle on video because there's video cameras on the shed that the plane is in. They have Melissa's vehicle pulling into this property owned by Derek's uncle at 4:30, 4 something in the morning.
4:30 in the morning of
October.
hang on a second. 4:30 in the morning of October 27th, 2021.
Yes. And now this is just a couple miles outside of Shannon.
Okay, and who? Okay, hang on a second. Who told you this? Who told you they had the video of the truck?
The police. The police.
Did they say could see who was in the truck or who came out of the truck or who was going in the truck from the video?
They know that it's Derek. I don't know how well of the camera shot that they got, but they know that it's Derek. Now, here's where we've heard conflicting statements, right, about the footage that somebody said that Melissa's body is visible at one point in time. Derek takes Melissa out of the truck. Cadaver dogs hit at Derek's mother's house. They hit at this airplane hangar too, out behind the airplane hangar. As a matter of fact, cadaver dogs hit shortly. I don't know the exact date, but within some weeks after Melissa disappeared, about a year later, they went back with cadaver dogs. The cadaver dogs hit again in the very same spot at the airplane hangar where they have him on video pulling in there with Melissa's truck. They also have it pulled from the GPS on her truck when they backtrack the GPS that Derek pulled in there. They have him fishtailing through the ditch into this property where the airplane hangar is. Then he goes behind the airplane hangar. I believe, from what I've been told, that he is dragging Melissa's body on the ground at this airplane hangar on video. And then from there, the truck goes back to the mother's house. And then from there, the truck goes to his friend, Jason Niesman, to Jason Niesman's house. This is all on the GPS of Melissa's truck.
Okay, hang on a second. Wait a minute. Did I hear you correctly? Did you say they have him on video with Melissa's body?
I believe so.
Okay, when you say you believe so, Ben, what do you mean? What do you mean believe so? Did that what the cops told you?
I've heard the limited version, but then Melissa's sister has her best friend who has talked to police even more than I have, and they've shared some things with her even more than what they've shared with me. And supposedly, I don't know. I've just heard conflicting things that they actually have, that there is maybe some video footage of Melissa laying on the ground in a tarp, or I don't know, but Derek dragging her in a tarp. I don't know if they can visibly see her body or if they're just assuming that that's what's in this tarp that he's dragging, and he goes behind the airplane hangar, and then he's there for 4 or 5 minutes, right? And that's GPS backs all this stuff up. And then he leaves, he goes back to his mother's house, right? Then the truck goes to his best friend's house, Jason Niesman, right? Now, Jason Niesman lies his ass off in some interviews. Cops treat him like a cooperative witness. This guy is a very uncooperative suspect. Lied through his teeth because he said Derek showed up walking at 4:35 in the morning, right? Now, this guy just lives a couple miles away from Bolton Road.
And okay, hang on a second here. I'm gonna go.
Jason Niesman.
Who told you this?
The police.
What police? What names?
Oh, it's been a bunch of them. I mean, they. I know what you're saying about they're not supposed to talk about stuff, but the thing is, we've brought them so many witnesses and brought them so much information on this case that they've shared quite a bit of information with us.
Okay, hang on a second, because I want to get this out again. You just said, if I heard you correctly, that, and if it's not, then you correct me, that the police told you they have video surveillance footage from the area of that airplane hangar of Derek dragging Melissa's body on the ground?
Now, I heard part of that from Melissa's sister's friend.
Okay, well,
And
that's
another girl.
okay.
Well, another girl that's talked to the police too, that she had with her, a psychic, whatever, not that, a psychic that was with this girl one day talking to the police. And so they supposedly, really the other girl, the psychic, is the one that said the most. They said that they could see Melissa's body on the video.
Hang on, hold on a second. This is what I'm getting confused at. Let's forget about the psychic for a second, or friends.
The cops told me, this is what I was told by the police myself.
That's what I'm asking you. What did the police tell you?
Evidence of Derek pulling in to the hangar. They have video evidence of Derek pulling into his uncle's property where the sneak airport is and sneak plane is, pulling in there and being there for 5 minutes or so and then leaving. The police talking to me did not mention Melissa's body or him dragging anything in a tarp.
Okay, that's what I want to make clear, because if that's the case on videotape, this guy should be already arrested and indicted. That's like you can't get any you can't get more harder evidence than somebody dragging a body on a missing woman that's been missing. So you're saying that did not come from the police. I want to make that specific here. That did not come from police.
Part about him, no, no, this is all looped together from both police and from Melissa's sister's friend, Sheena, and from the girl, the psychic, that Sheena brought with her when they met with a cop in Stevenson County.
Okay, that's
supposedly there is some video footage of him doing something with a body, maybe. That's I know from what the police told me, they do have him pulling in there in her truck. Driving him in her truck.
That's what I want to be clear. I don't want to go into what somebody said. They heard somebody to a psychic to somebody on this, because I just want to clarify that. I want to clarify.
I get what you're saying. I know that sounds
okay.
Whatever.
Listen to what I'm telling you.
I get that.
Okay, hang on a second, man. Listen.
I know this much, that the police told me they have Derek pulling into this it's a farm with an airstrip and a big shed with a crop duster plane in it.
Okay. Did any law enforcement officer tell you? Not anybody else. Tell anybody else. Did any law enforcement officer tell you that they saw Derek on a video surveillance footage dragging Melissa's body or putting a body in a tarp where they believed it was her body was in it? Did any law enforcement officer tell you that?
Law enforcement told me that.
Say what?
No law enforcement told me that, no.
Okay. I want to make that clear for the listeners, because that just blew me out of the chair over here when you said that. I'm like, if that's the case, this is case closed. I mean, the guy should be arrested. Okay. You got to be careful here when we go from, I know you're just talking about what people said, but when somebody says, I was talking to this person who said this person, that's not, to me, that's, I want to hear direct.
Myself or see the video footage of that, but Mandy is Melissa's sister, her best friend Sheena, who's done a lot of the investigating on all this, and the psychic lady that went with Sheena one day went and they talked to this cop. I don't want to put him out there because he's been the one that shared the most with people from the beginning. So this cop supposedly showed them footage that they say that's Melissa's body there.
But right now, this is all hearsay, second and third party. You don't know that for a fact.
Hearsay, yes.
This is just somebody telling you that. Okay.
That is hearsay. What's not hearsay is that they have Melissa's truck GPSed to the hangar.
Right.
What's not hearsay is that they have him pulling in there and being there for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, then back to his mother's house, right? The truck's GPS, all of this is on GPS.
Okay.
Then the truck leaves the mother's house again, the second time, right? And goes to his best friend, Jason Niesman's home, right? So at this point, Jason Niesman comes into the picture, and this is Derek's best friend. Now, he lies through his teeth. He says Derek showed up walking there, but that's not true.
Okay, hang on a second. When you say he lies through his teeth, how do you know that? How do you know that?
Because that's what he said before he knew that they had GPS evidence of the truck pulling up at his house and being there for 2 minutes.
Okay, listen to what I'm saying here, because we're throwing a lot of names out here.
Yep.
How do you know you said he lied? How do you know that? Who told you that?
Oh, the cops told us that he lied, and he even came to a grand jury and lied his ass off, too. Continue to lie.
Okay, now stop there again. Law enforcement officers told you that this guy you just mentioned lied in a grand jury?
Yep.
Okay, what was the grand jury convened for? What was the grand jury about?
Oh, they called in, I don't know, they called in people close to Derek. They called in Jason Niesman.
No, that's what
Here's
I'm
the
asking.
thing.
Was it a grand jury that was convened specifically to investigate Melissa's
Yes.
disappearance?
Yes.
And this police officer is telling you, is what you're telling me, of what somebody said in the grand jury.
Yep. And I'm going to tell you this. Police officers also said that Derek's mother went in there and changed her story completely from what she told investigators and the 911 people the morning that Melissa disappeared, too.
Okay, hang on a second. What's the police officer's name that told you that this gentleman lied in the grand jury? What's his name?
Well, now here's the thing. I don't know if I should give that or not, because this is also the same cop that showed the Sheena and the other girl video footage of something happening out at the hangar, whether or not it's Melissa's body or Melissa's body in a tarp.
Ben, I want his name. This is what, for all intents and purposes, this is an unsolved homicide of Melissa Trumpy. What is this cop's name? So I'm
Bradley Curtis.
Who?
Bradley Curtis, the lieutenant from Stevenson County.
And Bradley Curtis, the lieutenant from Stevenson County, told you of what some of the people said in the grand jury, that their stories will conflict. Is that what that in essence what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Okay.
He just said people lied their asses off.
Okay, and he mentioned names.
Yeah.
Okay.
Niesman and Derek's mother, Denise.
Okay, is this lieutenant the person who told you that they have surveillance video footage at the hangar?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Listen, Eric, Ben, we're at 1 minute and 27, an hour and 27 minutes. I don't want this going past an hour and a half because people will start to get lost. We can pick this up again, but in the next couple of minutes, you got 3 or 4 minutes here. Tell me anything that you want to tell me about this that you directly know about. Directly, either from a police officer told you or you know for yourself, without going into what a friend of a friend said, they talked to this one, that one. Anything else that you were told directly from the police about Melissa's disappearance?
5 or 5:30 in the morning. Now, Jason Niesman, 5:30 in the morning, Jason Niesman said Derek showed up at his house, walking, right? Now, cops know that's not true because they have Melissa's vehicle, GPS there, it's there for a couple minutes, then it goes straight to where it's abandoned on Bolton Road, right? But this guy, Jason Niesman, separated him from that by saying Derek was there walking. But the vehicle stopped there, and then it went to where it was abandoned, and it's a few miles away. So this guy followed Derek, helped Derek abandon Melissa's vehicle, and then gave Derek a ride back into Shannon. Now, he said Derek showed up acting crazy. He was going to take Derek to his mother's house. But Derek was acting so crazy, Jason Niesman kicked him out of his car in the Shannon Baptist Church parking lot on the other side of town.
And who told you this?
Now, the cops. And this one I've heard from multiple cops. This one I heard from Ryan Klepping. I heard it from Bradley Curtis. Now, Niesman said that Derek was acting crazy, so he kicked Derek out of his car. But this is what I'm going to say. Niesman didn't want to be seen. Niesman knew what Derek did. He didn't want to be seen dropping Derek off at home at his mother's house, whether on a Ring doorbell camera from the neighbors or from somebody just visually seeing him. Now, that morning, Niesman went around and told several people, my best friend is going away to prison for life. He was crying and hysterical. These people called Nicole Now, Nicole, the girl that takes care of Melissa, these people called Nicole's boyfriend, Daniel Kaiser. He's the guy that runs Melissa's timeline, missing persons page on Facebook. So this guy, Jason Niesman, went to Mitch and Charity Hammer's house crying about Derek, and this is Derek's cousins. Mitch or Charity Hammer told a guy named Ryan Stagger that Jason was there crying and hysterical. Something had happened. And then that Ryan Stagger called Daniel Kaiser and said, Derek did something happened. And within a few hours from Derek's mother's 911 calls, the second SWAT team to pick Derek up in a month and a half, because SWAT team picked him up from Melissa's house with the gun incident, surrounded Derek's mother's house, and supposedly there was a hostage situation there. When on Facebook there was pictures of helicopters and tanks in front of Derek's mother's house, and it said hostage situation, Shannon, Illinois. And people were saying Derek took his own family hostage. Now his family now disputes that they were hostage, but Derek didn't come out of the house for over an hour, I believe.
What does that have to do with, what's the connection with that and Melissa's disappearance?
Well, I think because of the 911 calls and because Derek had warrants from the police for violating the no contact order, because they knew he was driving Melissa's vehicle on the high-speed chase. And then when Melissa didn't show up to work that morning, I don't know, her mom calling in or whatnot, but the police knew something happened to Melissa pretty much right away. And the Wisconsin police got involved that day. They were involved by that afternoon, the Wisconsin police, either around the time of the SWAT team incident or shortly afterwards. The Wisconsin police were already pressuring Illinois about something happening. Derek's neighbor, about 8 in the morning before the SWAT team arrived, seen Derek burning stuff in a fire pit in the backyard of his mother's house.
Who told you that?
Supposedly electronics.
Who told you that?
Casey Woodard. She lives 3 or 4 houses away from Derek's mother. So she and Casey Woodard used to date Jason Niesman. Jason Niesman had called Casey at 6 in the morning and said, don't even come out of your house today. Something crazy happened and there's something dangerous is happening. Told her not to come out of her house. Well, she did go out of her house, sees Derek. First of all, she sees him cutting through a neighbor's backyard. And now this is even later. It's maybe 8 in the morning. Then 8, 9, 10 in the morning, she sees Derek burning a bunch of stuff. She says are electronics and some clothing or something in a fire pit of his mother's backyard.
And this is on October 27th, 2021 now?
27th. The morning of the 27th.
And who told you all this, that all this was going on again? Who told you this?
Some of this I heard from Casey Woodard, because I've talked to Casey Woodard myself. Some of this has come from different police, a bunch of different police. Now, mind you, I've talked to a lot of police about this. Some of this came from the police had an evidence tent over, I call it more like what a chimenea is, or a little, it's not like a fire pit dug in the ground, but one of them little steel things you could put a few pieces of wood in and burn.
Right.
The police had an evidence tent in Denise Hammer's backyard for 3 days where Derek was burning stuff in the backyard. So we literally, and I've never seen nothing like this before, because Denise Hammer was cooperating for a brief period of time, and then she did a 180 and lawyered up. And so the cops had to back off. They already had an evidence tent up. So they set a detective in a squad car that sat there for 3 days. I kid you not. I've never seen anything like this. There was a Carroll County Sheriff's officer sitting in a squad car for 3 days watching that evidence tent from the road. But it took 3 days for a judge to sign off on a warrant to search Denise Hammer's house. And once she quit cooperating and lawyered up, they had to just go sit and look at the evidence tent. We were showing up at we're driving around there for 3 days straight ourselves, trying to see if we could figure out what was going on, driving by the mother's house and seeing that squad car never moved for 3 days. If that squad car moved, they already had another squad car there to take its place. 3 days straight, they sat on top of that evidence tent before the judge, who also happens to work closely with Denise Hammer because she's a public official there, signed off. It took him 3 days to sign off on a warrant. I mean, people could get a drug raid warrant in the middle of the night by a 24-hour on-call judge who will just fax a warrant over, but it took 3 days to search Denise Hammer's home, with people saying he's burning stuff and it's got something to do with Melissa and all that in his backyard. So there's a lot more to this. There's a lot more to this story. If I tell you more, we probably have to go into a second part because I know you want to cut things short.
Well, there's a lot of stuff for myself and the listeners and stuff to digest in this. There's a lot of stuff that you told me that I find extremely troubling. Why so many police officers are, in essence, running their mouths about, as far as I'm concerned, is an unsolved homicide. Melissa's not, unless she's in hiding for a year and a half. I mean, we're going on 2 years this October. Coming up will be 2 years. This is just like the district attorney said. He called it a no-body homicide. I call it a homicide without a body. Same thing. But a lot of what you told me, Eric, I appreciate it. I appreciate coming on the show. We're going to have you on again if you hear anything, updates, or take some notes, anything that you forgot. But I find it, as a criminal investigator, I find what you told me extremely troubling on the behavior of the police involved in the investigation of Melissa's disappearance. It's extremely troubling, extremely bothersome to me that this information is flowing to you and other people, and they're talking about an unsolved case, because what they're doing, in essence, is they're jeopardizing this investigation. I have no doubt what you told me is the truth, but you cannot do this. You cannot do allegedly what you said they did, is talking and giving everybody information on what's going on and who's talking in the grand jury and you're saying what. I've never heard anything like this in my life. This is even worse than a case I'm looking into out here, but this is just extremely shocking and extremely disturbing. All right, Ben, we're gonna shut it down. We're in an hour and 37 minutes. Yep. I appreciate you coming on, and my condolences to you and Melissa's family. I didn't mean to be abrupt when I said this, but I'm saying right now I agree with the district attorney, the prosecutor, who said on the news that this is a homicide case without a body, and extremely troubling. Why these police officers involved in this case are running their mouths and giving people information they should not be giving out. It's extremely troubling. Listen, Ben, I appreciate it. And you have a good evening, man.
You too. Take care, Doug.
Thanks, Ben.
Bye.
All right, bye. Okay, hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. This is what you just heard. I've never heard anything like this before. It's we're going to do more on this. This is extremely, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm lost for words. Testimony in a grand jury on an open, this is a homicide, a missing person at the least, endangered, unknown whereabouts. It is, in my opinion, like I said, a homicide case, a homicide without a body. And for police officers to be telling anybody, even family members, specifics of what people witness statements they told the police, the grand jury testimony. This is I don't even know what to say right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't subscribe to my channel, DOUG POPPA Podcast on YouTube, the DOUG POPPA Podcast, hit the subscribe button. If you hit the bell, you get notification. You saw the banner going up there below. If you want to reach out to me, it's DOUG POPPA Podcast paypal@gmail.com. If you want to support my work, paypal.me/Doug Papa. Audio podcast versions are available on iHeartRadio and Spotify and some other platforms. And anybody else out there, any people in Melissa's family, anybody else that has pertinent information, direct information involving the disappearance of Wisconsin woman Melissa Trumpy, who was last seen on October 26th of 2021, and a vehicle was found the next day, October 27th, in Illinois. And the posters and stuff were up on the screen, and I'll have the link to my podcast I did on this last year. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate it. You all have a good night, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Lawman sacrificed his badge for justice.
Papa knew a secret that could free a man wrongfully imprisoned for shooting his ex-wife. But when Papa stepped forward, he was cut down by his own police department.
All this stuff's going in my head. Should I call up to the defense attorney? Okay? And I knew if I did that, holy hell would break loose.
Deputy Sheriff Doug Papa used to be one of the top cops in rural Loudoun County, Virginia. Deputy Papa feels he's been busted himself. He lost his job as a narcotics investigator, he says, when he told an ugly truth about a 4-year-old crime. The truth about how his own department and the local prosecutor allegedly ignored key evidence and may have sent an innocent man to jail.
I testified, and everything changes.
What Deputy Papa testified about was an attempted murder in 1987.
They deliberately withheld evidence that should have been given to my defense attorneys.
Bill Birch is the prosecutor Deputy Papa accused of ignoring the evidence.
He says, I told the prosecutor, I told Mr. Birch that this woman said, I'm going to shoot myself if need be, and I'm going to make it look like my husband did it just to ruin his life. Did he say that to you? No, he did not.
But this November, the court believed Doug Papa.
Oh my goodness, is this the reception committee?
And on Valentine's Day, William Carter was released on a $50,000 bond and given a new trial.
This man usually puts people on trial in this courthouse, but in a rare turn of events, the Loudoun County Commonwealth Attorney was called to the witness stand. William Birch was asked to respond to allegations that he pressured a witness to lie in earlier court proceedings.
Listen.
A woman who lived at the Carter mansion the night Carol Vandergrift Carter was shot 5 years ago testified that the prosecutor coached her to withhold testimony about the gun involved.
I certainly did tell him about that it was a .38.
I don't recall her saying anything about the gun, a .38 caliber, anything like that. He's lying to cover his tracks on the last trial.
The high price one cop is paying for telling the truth.
After serving more than 4 years behind bars, Carter was on the edge of his seat when the verdict was read today.
We, the jury, on Each's joint, find the defendant William W. Carter not guilty.
After he audibly thanked the jury, Douglas Carter could not contain himself. The tears flowed.
I came out and testified in November of 1991 at the habeas corpus hearing, and again in January. I was suspended for 10 days without pay, and I ended up being fired after 12 years in this department.